Hey everyone, happy April Fool's Day, but this is no trickery we've got going on tonight. I've got a very interesting guest. Her name is I want to say Dr. Schellie Fanfan, but it's not Dr. Schellie Fanfan, but she is an expert in emotional intelligence. A couple of things we want to get to this evening, and we are at basically 1 year out of COVID. And during that time, a lot of issues have come up for people. And if we're not being truthful about being on lockdown, we have some issues. There are some family issues that are going on. You know, let's spill the tea. I've noticed a lot more mental health issues and a lot more domestic violence issues as well. So Schellie and I are going to talk about things like total life prosperity. She believes that every person can have that. We're going to talk about intimacy as well. And we're also going to talk about the price tag that COVID has paid for intimacy during COVID as well. So let's welcome Schellie Fanfan to One Take Live. How are you, sis?
I am so blessed. Thank you so much. It's such a privilege to be here. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and thank you. You know, One Take Live actually started about a year ago, and after I left the radio station, I wanted to stay, as my daughter said, we're going to do everything we can to keep you relevant, and we have. And so in producing this show, we go for 15 minutes, and it's, just rapid fire questions, and we just have fun giving our audience information, and then they can chime in too. So tell me a little bit more about what you do in trying to heal the whole person.
So I'm a licensed psychotherapist here in the state of Florida. And basically what I do is I provide evidence-based therapeutic interventions to help people to overcome injury, to overcome their own mindsets, to overcome their thought patterns, to overcome their own behavioral patterns. Most of the time, I'm helping people to overcome themselves. And in order for them to activate irreplaceable versions of themselves. That's what I do. I do that through therapy. I do that through corporate consulting. I partner with business entities in providing psychoeducation that brings those corporations to peak performance. And that's what I do each and every day.
This is wonderful. And one of the things that you and I talked a lot about is what COVID did to the family, from the mother-daughter, the family experience, the intimacy level of a mother and father or just a couple. And one of the things that I will say, Schellie, is that I think people are looking at each other now after 365 days of seeing them and realizing, I don't really like you. I don't really know you, though, first of all. How could we be in the same space and not know each other?
Because we don't prioritize intimacy. Intimacy is attachment, it is bonding. And what happens a lot of times within the family unit is that husbands and wives are so distracted by their day-to-day operations, work, paying the bills, getting the kids to school and getting the kids to their extracurricular activities, that they're not prioritizing the relationship. And so what you don't use, you will lose. And so when you're not using that intimacy, when you're not building on that intimacy, when you're not having those conversations of care, tell me how you feel, tell me if you feel fulfilled, do you think you're operating in purpose? Those conversations of care, being intentional about meeting the emotional, physical, and spiritual needs of the other, it dies. And so what happened was, when we were in quarantine with one another, husbands and wives were realizing, number one, I really don't know you. I don't know if I really like you. And they were realizing that they're not as happy as they wanted to be. Parents realized that they didn't even know their own children, didn't know how to entertain their kids and keep them occupied. And so the pandemic was a season of exposure. And there are a lot of families that are healing from that exposure, or trying to heal from that exposure.
You know, what I say, Schellie, is that it was a hella wake-up call on so many levels.
Absolutely.
Either you used it and you panicked, or you planned to do better. And in many instances, I'm noticing by the trauma, because we're experiencing trauma after this pandemic. The exposure, as you say, is very vital, and we can either learn from it, learn how to deal with it, or people are running. What do you think about the divorce rates? Are they up higher?
Divorce rates are through the roof. Substance abuse, through the roof. Porn addiction, through the roof. I have a statistic for you. 2020, alcohol sales increased by 262% compared to 2019. 15% of COVID cases were diagnosed with pre-existing trauma before they even went into the hospital. And so, yes, collectively, we are experiencing trauma, and it's very clear in the statistics. Like I said, the alcohol sales and porn addiction, divorce rate, infidelity, child abuse cases, DCF cases through the roof. So this really exposed a lot of our growth potential areas, our emotional injuries, and our overall lack of resilience as a people.
Let's talk about that lack of resilience. It is a muscle. It is something that you have to build on and you have to exercise it. So when we're talking about building resiliency, we're talking about building intimacy. We're talking about learning how to communicate. That's building your resiliency. Learning how to take a moment together. A walk in the park can do wonders
That's
for
so
any
good.
relationship, you know? So these are ways to build resiliency. What else can we do to build resiliency and toughen ourselves up and therefore make our relationships stronger?
One of the things that you said, Monica, was learning. We cannot expect this knowledge, this wisdom, this expertise to just fall from the sky. We have to learn. My coach says all the time that our breakthrough is on the other side of something we do not know. Half the time, the lessons that we learned about communication were poor. Lessons that we learned about how to resolve conflict were poor. And so we have to relearn new skills that will serve us. So, for example, I'm going to tell you this: quality time. I don't know how many times I've had couples, I ask them, what do you do for quality time? Outside of what you do with your children, what do you do for quality time? And they may say something like, well, we try to go to the movies once a week. Well, quality time, Monica, is defined as this: 3 forms of contact happening at one time. And those 3 forms of contact are eye contact, skin contact, and verbal contact happening at one time, uninterrupted and done with consistency. So when you talk about a couple that says, we go to the movies for quality time, what are they missing? They're missing eye contact, right? You're not talking. And so it's about learning and stop, kind of adopting these mindsets that are really not serving us. Quality time is not just being at McDonald's while your kids are playing on the playground and you're on your laptop. You're not connecting with them. You're not speaking with them. You're not touching them. You're not looking at them. So learning the true depth of what attachment and bonding truly is, learning what true intimacy is all about. You want great sex? Don't focus on the act of sex. You got to focus on the intimacy, how we are attaching, how we are bonding, how are we growing together. So I would say that it starts with being intentional about learning new information about how to go about this thing called life.
So sometimes also, Schellie, these are good points that you're making. Thank you so much. We also have to unlearn
Come on.
a lot of what we've been used to, unlearn some things that we feel have been working for us, unlearn some things that we've just been skating by in our relationships. When I talk about mother-daughter healing, I'm also talking about those same 3 things as well. You have to learn how to take time. We have this exercise with a pillow, sis. Check this out, where we've designed a pillow. And if a mother walks in her room and she sees that pillow on her bed, that means she needs to put her stuff down, check her face. And I know that she's beautiful, but check her face and see if it's got that what is it called? That BRF, that resting face, or RBF. Okay, remove that. Okay, because that'll speak volumes before you even open your mouth. And then she needs to go and find her daughter and make herself available. So that opens up the fact that she wants to be in that conversation. Now, if a girl comes home and finds that she's going to say to herself, oh God, what did I do? She's going to go through her checklist of all the things that her mom may want to talk with her about. And then she's going to make herself available to her mom. You have to be intentional in order to communicate. intentional about receiving whatever's being said to you. And everyone has to put down their defenses in that. When you walk across the threshold, put the defenses down.
And that's hard sometimes,
It is.
especially when we're talking about mothers and daughters, because we want to have those open, we want to have that open dialogue. We want to have those real conversations. But when your daughter is telling you that she's getting, that feeling down there, and she starts talking about things that you don't want to
You don't know
hear,
what to say.
right? And we go into disciplinary mode and we wonder why our children don't speak to us. Even that, Monica, is a skill. We talk about communication all the time. Like, you have to have great communication with your kids. Well, first of all, we got to understand that communication is a two-way street. If you say you're a good communicator, you got to understand that communication is expressive and communication is receptive. We have a whole lot of people that can talk real good, but they don't listen real good. So if you don't listen real good, then you're not a great communicator, because it's about expressive and receptive, communication, and teaching parents how to be very timely. And when they discipline, when you allow your children just to speak, so you can use that time for attachment and bonding, that's hard. And all of that is learned skill.
Mm-hmm. And it's not something that's in a book. And I always tell parents, but it is something you can learn. And
That's
it
right.
is something that in a relationship, you've got to learn in order for it to work. Sometimes I find my husband and I talking over each other because
Oh my
he'll
God.
try to answer a question before I even finish it. And sometimes I realize I do the same thing to him. So what I'm trying to do, and I have been for 7 years, working on us just really just pay attention to me. Let me finish a sentence, and it's working, because sometimes
Awesome.
we go through life and into adulthood not really understanding the full technique of communication. It is so important. I've been talking to a lot of business women throughout Women's History Month, and a lot of them were athletes. I did a couple of webinars for the Orlando Magic, and one of the things that St. Harris with the Dallas Mavericks said is that the 3 L's: you got to listen, you got to really, really learn, and you got to love. So listen, learn, and love.
I love that.
Listen to your people, learn who they are, and love on them. But each one has a different language. So learn to speak those languages too. So this is really good stuff. If you're just tuning in, Schellie Fanfan is a licensed mental health therapist, and she is a psychotherapist too. And one of the things that she believes is that each person can experience total life prosperity. I want to talk about that right now too.
Absolutely. I think sometimes we have these ideas, and they never manifest because we don't believe that they can happen to us. And total life prosperity is a choice. We have to learn two major things. Number one, our words manifest. There's much power in that. And so when we realize that we have the capacity to influence outcomes in the earth, let me say that again. When we realize that we have the capacity to influence outcomes in the earth, it's at that point that you are taking control over your own destiny. Words manifest. The atmosphere has one assignment, and that is to produce what you say. So words go forth to manifest your behavioral patterns, the things that you choose to do every morning, the things that you choose to do every evening, the things that you are intentional about. Behavioral patterns attract one of two things. Behavioral patterns will either attract favorable life outcomes or unfavorable life outcomes. A lot of times when people find themselves attracting unfavorable life outcomes, we can always trace it back to a behavioral pattern that you have not broken. And so total life prosperity is about using our words to serve us, using our behaviors to serve us, and using our mindsets to serve us. And total life prosperity is not just something that we have a capacity to attain. It's what we deserve. And once we understand that the things that we desire are things that we deserve, we're great. One more aspect to that. We don't always get what we pray for. We don't always get what we hope for, but we will almost always get what we prepare for. And that's what total life prosperity is about. Maximizing favorable life outcomes based on what you are intentional about preparing for.
This is so wonderful. And one of the reasons, Schellie, that we go only 15 minutes is that I want to leave my audience wanting more. So we're at that mark. Oh, yeah. We've got ways to reach out to you. You got your Ask Schellie show, and Schellie is just as it is on the screen, Schellie. When is your show on, Schellie?
Every Tuesday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Facebook and on YouTube.
This is wonderful. We'll make sure to tune in. I want to be on your show too.
Oh, it's a done deal. We'll be connecting.
You know it. Schellie, what's another way? What's your web information?
So it's www.askschellie.com. For those who want to connect with me directly, they can do so right on my website. Again, www.askschellie.com. I am Ask Schellie on all social media platforms. They can also email info@askschellie.com as well.
This is perfect. Schellie Fanfan, thank you so much for being on, for giving us those COVID tips to re-engage with our family. That's so important, talking about emotional intelligence as well, and being deliberate with our words. You've been a blessing to us all this evening. Thank you so much for being on One Take Live, and thank you for joining us. I'm Monica May. Have a wonderful week.
Same to you. Blessings.